In this episode of Wanted, a midlife hobby, we're going to see if learning a musical instrument hits the right note as a hobby worth pursuing. We'll start out by talking with Mike Burnham, a full-time scientist who is a part-time guitarist for the New Jersey-based band Stained Glass. All right, wonderful. I am very happy to be here with Mike Burnham, who is going to help me explore this time around what it would be like if I should happen to pick my midlife hobby to be learning how to play an instrument. And Mike is a very talented guitarist, among other things. He sings, puts me to shame, and I'm just so happy to have a chance to talk with you, Mike. So thanks very much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Sure, anytime. This is great, Rob. Thanks. And please don't put yourself down. You sang Stairway to Heaven.
Yes, but I didn't sing it well. So there is a difference there. You can sing it and not necessarily sing it well. At least I'll admit to singing it, though. I don't even usually admit to singing it in public, so it's all good, Mike.
Not a problem.
All right, so let me start with just the very first basic question. How did you first discover that you were actually interested in music in general?
Yeah, sure. So my mom was a wonderful singer at church, and she's a fantastic piano player. And when I was 8 years old in third grade, a lot of my friends had started to learn how to play the piano. And I'm like, oh, this sounds like something I'd like to try and do. So naturally, I started taking piano lessons and realized I am never going to be as good as my mom. What I didn't realize or understand that I was getting a good foundation into music theory, how to read music, how to tell time, the timing of the songs, and branching out into musical styles that I had no idea that I was going to be able to use later on in life. So I played piano for about 5 or 6 years, and then I realized it wasn't for me.
Okay.
But I started playing drums.
Oh, really?
So when I was in 7th grade, I played snare drum in our marching band, and then moved up to timbales, which are like 4 Congo drums connected together, and then sort of started to lead the drum corps at our middle school, and then that transitioned into playing in both concert and marching band in high school, which was great. We had a great time, and again, it was sort of that camaraderie. We'd always play Friday nights or Saturdays for football games, and then march in all the parades. And we had very passionate music directors. So I'll give a very big shout out to our music director from high school, Barry Eli, who really challenged his band members and cultivated relationships and sort of put Cape and Lopin marching band on the map back in the late 80s. So now you know how old I am.
That was not going to be a question, just for the record. No. I was going to stay away from that.
But then I had a good friend, really good friend in high school, Mark Ducate. So we were the same age. And he was the one that really got me interested in guitar. Now, I was interested in guitar because when you're in the late 70s, early 80s, Kiss is right up in front of you. So they're loud guitars, really rock and roll heavy songs. The mystique around that band is sort of what piqued my interest into what being in a band would be like. Now, granted, I wasn't going to be in a band like Kiss, but those influences really shaped me to figure out, I could really enjoy doing this. So I bought my first guitar when I was a junior in college, and really started my journey then. Trying to pick up, from music books, or we didn't have YouTube YouTube's fantastic nowadays for people that are trying to learn how to play an instrument. And I go on YouTube a lot now to just learn how to improve my playing technique or styles, learn new songs. But it does take a lot of patience and a lot of practice. So, from the start of my journey back in, from guitar, from back in my early 20s to where I am today, there's certainly been a lot of effort and a lot of fun. That's the beauty of music, is that you may not think it sounds impressive but at least you're trying to do something to make it enjoyable for yourself.
Do you have to have started when you were in your 20s? I mean, so I'm a middle-aged guy, right? I also dabbled in, I took the mandatory piano lessons as a kid and all those kinds of things, and I certainly enjoy listening to music, but I wasn't a stick to it kind of guy. But so I don't have a lot of that kind of background you were talking about. But with somebody who's like me in this kind of midlife phase, is it too late to start at this point?
No, I don't think it's ever too late to pick up an instrument and try. It just takes a lot of effort on someone's part to try and really connect with the instrument and know what instrument that you really want to try and learn. I have a friend in our band, and he's sort of jack of all trades. He can play a bass guitar, an acoustic guitar, electric guitar. He plays the banjo and harmonica. And I'm like, I'm in awe of this guy because his name Kevin Kelly. You've met Kevin. That he can, sort of nearly master, all these different instruments. So it's really nice to connect with him to know. I mean, he just wanted to pick up a mandolin and learn how to play mandolin. It's just, when you have that, I guess, background in music and music theory, that can help. But I don't think it's ever too late to, start on a journey of something that you could potentially be very passionate about. And you don't have to be great. If you can figure out 3 or 4 chords, there are tons of songs that you can learn how to play by learning 3 or 4 or 5 basic chords.
Okay. And that's it. Like, is it the same for guitar, for piano, for drums, even, I guess, all those things that you've
certainly done? You can learn music theory from, a piano teacher. It's very directly related to guitar. It's just notes are formulated and chord structures are formulated in the same way in both instruments. So it certainly has helped me understand, sort of those basic and more complex chord structures that have that piano background. But I don't think it's necessary. I think, if you're interested or just passionate about something, or you think you can be passionate about it, it certainly is something at any age people can pick up. I talk about YouTube, and I go on there to learn from all these music instructors who are way, way beyond what I think I could ever get to. But they break it down to be, this is a simple little mode or pentatonic arpeggio, the things that you recognize from when you were playing piano directly translates to, what you could learn to play on the guitar. And they're very encouraging. That's why I love these YouTube teachers, because they're like, you don't have to be the best.
Yeah.
And they're not trying to make you the best. They're trying to make you passionate about learning something new. And sometimes, Rob, it'll click, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know I could do that.
Oh, that must be cool.
It is.
Yeah. So, but you're investing a lot of time. So, people talk about investments sometimes in both terms of time and money. So I'm going to ask you about both. The time standpoint, first of all, because I expect, anybody listening to this is most likely a 9-to-5er. I don't know what 9-to-5er means anymore in today's world, but
not in this world, right?
Not in this world, but at least relatively speaking, there's probably a 9-to-5er thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still, does that get in the way of them trying to learn a new instrument? How would you work the time investment piece?
Well, my wife, Karen, will tell you, like when we're sitting on the couch watching a show, I will have a guitar in my hand, just practicing scales.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't have to be every day, but you do have to make that investment into, what do you want to make out of it? If I am sitting down to watch a TV show or a movie, I will probably have a guitar in my hand and just practice something that I need to learn for our praise band at church, or something, some song that a friend wants to try together, or just relearning something, trying something different, trying something new, trying to improve upon my abilities and trying to make that connection with the guitar.
Okay, that's cool. So that's the time investment piece. The other investment obviously is financial. Is there something that somebody's starting out learning how to do an instrument? Do you feel like it's generally affordable? What kind of expenses might there be? I mean, do you have to pay for coaches? Is it teacher, coacher? What was the right term of your
teacher? Yeah.
Teacher. Okay. So do you need to pay for a teacher? I mean, what would you recommend to somebody starting out?
My first suggestion for someone that would be interested in learning guitar is buy a relatively inexpensive acoustic guitar, because you get enough sound out of the instrument itself that you don't need other accoutrements like amplifiers or a PA system or anything like that, because that you can set your foundation. You can hear what you're playing, and you could probably hear if you're playing it right or wrong enough to sort of give you that sense that if something you're doing repetitively and it clicks, that's one of the best feelings that you can get as a musician. Is I've learned something, I've improved on my playing, I've learned some new technique, and then I say, okay, how do I build upon that? What do I need to challenge myself? They talk about the 10,000 hour rule, right? In terms of trying to master something, you have to practice at it for 10,000 hours. Who has that amount of time? Right?
Yeah.
But set your expectations, if you really want to learn the instrument, you have to kind of make that connection with it. So yes, the time investment's there. The financial investment is what it is. I mean, it's what you want to make of it. But if you are just coming into, or just starting out into, trying to learn this instrument, a guitar, don't go out and buy, a $3,000 or $4,000 guitar, because you might not like it, and you might not make that connection with the instrument itself. But certainly there are a number of relatively well-made guitars out there that are well within a good price point that you can start with. And
I'm disappointed, Mike, because I was ready to go out and buy one of those double neck, like the guitarists from Cheap Trick used to play all the time, the multi-neck kind of. I'm ready to go ahead and jump all the way in, man. You think I should not do that right away?
I'm not going to tell you, because that would be awesome to have. So here's where things get tricky, Rob. Is that when you start to fall in love with guitar and playing guitar, you'll want more guitars. I have 7.
No kidding. Yeah. Wow.
And I have 7. I have 4 amplifiers. I have speaker cabinets. I have effects pedals. I'm all set for now. And I think Karen would tell you the same thing. It's like, you don't need any more guitars. Here's the thing, Rob. I only have 2 hands.
Okay, that's a fair point.
Right. I can't play 7 guitars with only 2.
But I bet you certainly try.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's great. We'll be back right after a short break to talk more about this midlife hobby. Okay, I want to go back again because there's 2 times so far in the conversation you've kind of mentioned church. You mentioned it in the conversation with your mom, that you're in a praise band right now. Is there a role that faith played for you when it came time to think about your musicality, when you were learning instruments, what you were going to do with it? I mean, did faith play a role for you?
Not early on.
Okay.
Well, no, let me take a step back. When I was learning the piano, almost every song that my piano instructor was having me learn to play was an old hymn, and having that background, having that faith-based background, it was interesting to see that, like, oh, that is actually a really cool song to play on the piano. And my faith journey's been, it's important. I give a lot of credit to Karen too, because, she had a very spiritual upbringing and background. And when we were married and we established a home in Cherry Hill, we started to go to church in Haddonfield. Mm-hmm. So, our faith has always been an important part of our life. When I was, when we started having children, I actually stepped away from the guitar for a long time.
Really?
I did. I think, being so busy with a job and raising 3 kids, my guitar sat in the corner, and I probably didn't pick it up for 10 years.
Really?
And Rob, that's not uncommon. You probably, if you talk to some other musicians, they'll tell you that sometimes they put their guitar or their bass or whatever instrument down, and life kind of happens, and you reprioritize. And yeah, it was probably about 10 years. And we started going to a new church in Mullica Hill about 12 years ago. And I was blown away by the praise band. And I said to Karen, I said, man, I would really like to try and join that band. And I went up to the band leader, and it's an interesting story because I think there were things that were happening where, some of the younger kids were either going away to college and they needed some people to step up. And the first thing he asked me was, can you sing? And I laughed. And I didn't get a call back from him for a year. But then I eventually did. And I've been in that praise band. I think it's going on 10 years now. And I credit, those guys, they work hard at it. They were regimented too. We practiced twice a week. We played 5 to 6 songs a service, and I had to learn 100 some songs.
Wow.
Yep.
Holy cow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the praise band, because you play with a lot of those same folks in another band. Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Tell me about the other band.
Sure. So we have another band called Stained Glass, and we sort of branched out from the folks from the praise band. So have this second sort of band to go out and play secular music. And we've been in that band for about 7 years now, in a couple different iterations. Our lead singer, she's recently left the band, but we've brought in some other members. Again, they're all part of the praise band, but we've kept that Stained Glass band going because we all like to play music, and there's so much different variety of music out there for us to explore and work on and play together. And it's a camaraderie. We we look at the band as sort of another family. We have a great time together. You know, with every band, there's always turmoil or troubles or, you know, disagreements, but you know, we've been together for 7 years now, and it's and again, in different iterations. I think, you know, where we're at now with this band, we don't get to play out as much. You know, COVID really put the kibosh on a lot of live events. But if there's ever an opportunity for us to play together, it's always a good time.
Have you tried playing virtually together? I'm just curious. Have you tried doing something like that?
We actually did.
How'd it go?
There's just some technicalities, you know, for trying to merge or match up, you know, what's happening, and making sure that your data connections is good enough to stream it and connect that way. But
yeah,
you know, I've again, I go back, and it sounds like I'm a salesman for YouTube, but I've seen some of these things where folks during pandemic times, they are able to produce really amazing music pieces with this technology that you know, I think if we had put, you know, a little bit more time or had that prowess to be able to do those things, we could have done similar. Probably not as good as what I've seen out there, but you know, we're still following all the protocols, you know, with social distancing.
Yeah.
Even yeah. But when we do play out, we're very careful. We're spread out. You know, we make sure that we take care of our fellow human being. You know, as a scientist and a virologist, I take this pandemic very seriously. And I want to make sure that, you know, I'm not doing something that risks my family or anyone else's family. So,
and I'm glad you brought that up, because I haven't mentioned to this point that you are a scientist and virologist in your, I'll call it let's call that your regular day job, and then you also have the stuff you're doing with the music and everything. But a lot of people would say the science and the creative side, not many people can kind of cross that bridge. And maybe I'm being a little too general here, but I want to get your thoughts on it, because the idea that you have a scientific mind, but also a creative mind it's a little mind numbing. So talk to me more about that. Do you agree with people who say that those two are kind of really separate and apart?
There are numerous studies that have been done that make that connection between brain smart and music. Right. It helps to boost IQ. These are proven studies that are out there. You get emotionally, you know, the passion that you feel for the music, or the emotion that you can experience from the music, can help your brain function as well. So there's definitely a lot of like scientific support for music and learning instruments. I've only come to realize that in the later years. You know, when I was in my 20s, you know, I'm learning how to play. I talk about praise and worship songs now, but I learned how to play a lot of heavy metal stuff and a lot of hard rock and roll, not knowing that I was, you know, learning a science, or the science of music.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah. I'm
going to have to look at Kiss in a totally different light. I'm definitely going to have to look at that differently. Oh my gosh. All right. So I guess what I want to really hone in just a little bit more on then is you're talking to a guy. Here I am in midlife, right? I'm not quite into crisis mode, but I'm definitely got the midlife part down, and I'm trying to figure out what's next. So if you're going to give me the straight up advice, because if I say to you, okay, I want to learn how to play an instrument, maybe it's guitar, maybe it's piano, I don't know at this point, what would you tell me I should do to either help me evaluate whether I want to do it or to get started? What would your advice be to me?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Now you're going to change my life here, Mike. So be careful how you. I'm just kidding. No.
I don't think you're going to know until you try, right? And you could find out very quickly that this could be way above your sense of what you could accomplish for them. Or again, like I did, I truly fell in love with a guitar playing. That sense of accomplishment that I learned how to play a song. I connected with other folks that were music minded, and I think that's where I would start someone on this path is, again, finding a podcast. I listen to a lot of guitar theory podcasts, or there's another guy that's on YouTube called Rick Beato. It's Beato.
Okay.
And he puts out these videos called "What Makes This Song Great," and he picks a wide array of different songs to choose from. He could pick any song. He picked these specific ones, and it could open your mind to see how brilliant these songs and these musicians truly are, and the care and the attention to minor things that you might not even pick up are just right there in your face.
Okay.
And as you go through your music journey, those things will become much more interwoven into what you're listening to or what you're trying to play. So my suggestion to someone is, one, find out what you really want to learn how to play. Is it a guitar? Is it a bass? Is it a ukulele? My daughter wanted to learn how to play ukulele.
No kidding.
For her. I mean, that's
great.
Fantastic.
Oh, that's great.
My son, Mitchell, who wasn't, I don't know if he really wanted to be in the band. He learned how to play trombone. And as I tell him, he's the best damn trombone player we've ever had in this house.
That's great.
Yeah. But anyway, I would give the advice of you really have to just make the effort to pick up the instrument, look at it, learn the basics, and really don't get discouraged. I think that's what a lot of people who give up on their musical talents is they get frustrated because they don't think they're learning it fast enough. That they don't think they can't play this particular song. Well, that song might be so darn hard and you just don't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just say to someone such as yourself, you will never know unless you try. And if you don't try, you're never going to know.
Fair enough. Very cool. That? That's perfect. That's perfect. All right, Mike, I want to thank you very much for the time. This was really cool. I enjoy listening to Stained Glass whenever I can get a chance to get and hear you guys, and hearing a lot more about your story and how you got there is fascinating to me. So I appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much.
Absolutely, Rob. Thank you.
My first lesson from you is free, right? We worked out that was part of our deal or something like that. So
I have an extra acoustic guitar. Anytime you want to stop by,
and still leave you with 6 that you can play on. So that's
right. I thank you, Rob, and I want to mention that I've had a lot of folks that I played with in both regular praise band or in other bands, or just friends that I've jammed with or whatever, that they really helped me. I learned a lot just talking with them and learning from them how to structure a chord structure or simple things or more complex things. So I give them a lot of credit too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, I appreciate that. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out our Instagram page, which you can find at midlife_hobby. Or follow us any place you can find podcasts, including Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And of course, when you find something you like, you should always tell a friend about it. Also, I'd love to hear thoughts and suggestions about other hobbies or speakers. Send an email to midlife.hobby@gmail.com. I'll do everything I can to follow up with you. Special thanks goes to Harry Connick Jr. for this episode's inspiration around hobbies. In case you haven't heard of Harry Connick Jr., he is a singer, composer, and also a pretty good piano player who once said, "I do things I like to do. It's sort of a bigger version of having more than one hobby." Hope you'll join us next time for Wanted, a Midlife Hobby.